Hi, I'm Matthew Hutchinson, a VCIO here at Copper Tree Solutions, and I'm here with Colin Schatz, our CEO, and today we're here to talk about the cloud. So, Colin, what are the common problems or pain points that prospective clients experience when they consider a migration to the cloud?
Well, first of all, the whole concept of the cloud is the source of a lot of confusion for people that maybe don't have a deep technical understanding of how it all works. It's not that complicated. It's just instead of a server in your office, it's a server in somebody else's office, probably in a data center somewhere. And ultimately, what people are trying to figure out, we'll get people that come to us, and I've talked to a lot of people that say, our servers are end of life and we need to upgrade our system. We'd like to go to the cloud, or we think we should look at that. Is that something we should do, or should we buy hardware again for on site here? And there's no simple answer to that. I think there's a lot of confusion about the benefits of the cloud or versus the risks. And people think that it's some kind of, they view it as a tough decision. It doesn't really need to be that. So from your perspective, Matthew, what's the difference between the cloud versus on-premise?
Well, ultimately, and this is an expression I've used to explain to a lot of executives, the difference is the size of the cord that attaches your computer to your servers. As you said, a cloud infrastructure involves running the same servers, running the same software, but running it in a data farm somewhere, as opposed to running it here down the hallway in your office. And really, what the most important thing I like to outline to them is this is a cost decision and a resource benefit decision. So what are the advantages to going to the cloud, to moving your infrastructure to the cloud? And there are some obvious advantages. There's a less capital outlay because I'm now renting server services as opposed to purchasing them outright. And there has to be a benefit to that. I've had clients where we've done the math and discovered over a 5-year period in your particular situation, it is less expensive not to go to the cloud. And I've had the opposite situation where it's obvious that because of some of the other benefits we'll talk about momentarily, a cloud migration provides so many other benefits to your business that even if the cost was neutral, these other benefits can only be realized with a cloud migration. The biggest thing I talk to executives about is, as you said earlier, an understanding as to what this means. Where is my information? And back to the core. Is it stable? Is it secure? Will it run the same way I'm used to things running? We've established a baseline with a client where you have servers and we look after them and everything's good. They need me to reassure them that to get the benefits of the cloud, you're not going to give up stability and you're not going to give up security when it's done properly.
What is the shift in the last year toward working from home? What has that done to the viability of going to the cloud?
It's certainly accelerated a lot of our clients' plans, driven by the necessity to get the advantage of work from anywhere. So here in our office, as I work on my workstation, all of our resources are in the cloud. So whether I sit in my office or whether I sit in my office in my home, it really makes absolutely no difference to me functionally. Without that cloud environment already being established, many clients during this COVID period have discovered that yes, you can work remotely, but because you're not fully in the cloud, there are some other considerations that have to take place. Infrastructure was not designed to support 60 remote users, it was designed to support 3 remote salesmen. So a lot of times they've discovered, hey, we're not really cloud ready, and that's not necessarily a problem because if it wasn't on the roadmap for this year, then it wasn't on the roadmap for this year. So COVID has really accelerated a lot of executives' longer term thinking about, yeah, I know I have a year left on my server stack before I need to consider the cloud. Maybe I should accelerate that because a lot of businesses have discovered there are significant advantages, depending on the industry you're in, to having staff working remotely. Just in terms of, if you have higher overhead costs for real estate, for office space, we have a number of clients that have significantly reduced the size of their office space because they've discovered it works in their situation really effectively to have staff work from home. And then they're coming to us and saying, all right, I want to continue this because I want to make these business changes. I think if we have a really robust cloud presence that's really well deployed, I see absolutely no downside. I only see upside. I have lower lease costs. I have fewer expenses. I have happier staff members. I have fewer HR issues. People have to juggle family concerns. It's a little bit easier in that environment. So oftentimes what they're doing is accelerating the cloud decision and bringing it forward. And they need me to explain to them, how you can still be stable, still be secure, and get all the benefits with none of the perceived risk.
We're at a point now where, as an organization, we're taking a cloud first approach where we say, all things being equal, we're going to the cloud. What are some of the reasons that we wouldn't do that?
One of the reasons that there's certain manufacturing environments where response times are so critical down to the milliseconds from devices that we couldn't guarantee the same level of service they've had with an on-premise server. There are hybrid cloud solutions that can deal with those things. We can move most infrastructure to the cloud and still have a piece of infrastructure here that supports it. You need obviously a very good and very stable internet connection in order to provide the same end user experience. So when we have the discussion that I have with every single client about when are we going to go to the cloud or can we go to the cloud, there's basic things that need to be in place that are certainly achievable before we can promise the same result when you move to the cloud. And there are some industries where parts of that business are not conducive to it, but that's pretty rare. By and large, I use the expression, we can stop buying servers and spending all this money on hardware next year, the year after. Whatever the refresh cycle is. And that's a common conversation that I have. Let's not spend any more capital on server stacks. Let's move it to the cloud and follow the pay-as-you-go model and get all the other side benefits.
It's pretty common to do that kind of hybrid approach that you mentioned where maybe some applications go to the cloud. Email is a really good example. I think if we look at our client base, the majority of our clients have their email in the cloud rather than an on-prem server, which wouldn't have been the case 10 years ago. But there's definitely pros and cons when you look at moving full applications and servers to the cloud, and it just depends on the needs of the organization.
One of the things I discuss in meetings when we discuss a cloud migration is my end user experience going to be significantly impacted? So I can tell a business leader, Colin, these are the advantages to going to the cloud. If I do a cloud deployment and it's not properly structured, your end user experience goes down, and you've kind of defeated the purpose. You've lost your stability if it's not done properly. So one of the things you have to make sure is that we get the improvements and we're not giving up anything significant in the migration. And those are the conversations people like to have with me. What is this going to mean for my end user? And when I sit in meetings and we discuss what's going to happen with a cloud migration, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. If you have 13 employees, I don't want 13 employees saying, great, we're in the cloud, but everything is 20% slower and I don't like it. That's a real business impact. So we want to get as much of the benefit as we can, and we want a little or no downside experience from that migration.
So what are the things that we do on our side to make sure that if we make that recommendation to go to the cloud, that everything will work as well as we want it to when we're there?
In a nutshell, it comes down to doing your homework. It comes down to what are the requirements to make this environment function in the cloud. It's a checklist of things that need to be done before we can make a recommendation and say, yes, this will work. And that's us doing our homework. I'm often asked, next year we need to do a refresh. We need to replace our servers. Let's talk about the cloud. And that conversation starts with, here's the benefits of the cloud. But before you get too excited, we need to look at what we need to implement in order to guarantee that environment is going to give you the improvements and none of the downsides. And it's basic things like, checking your internet connection and your stability, redundant internet connections, because you rely now entirely on your internet connection to keep your business functioning. So it's a checklist of things we need to look at. It's what kind of speed end result are we going to get from user interactions with applications? It's one thing to say my internet speed is good, but if you have an outdated business application that is not going to function well in an RDS environment, for example, you need to do that homework first. The last thing we'll ever do is recommend a cloud migration and hope that it works. We're going to recommend a cloud migration because we're sure it's going to work.
So Matthew, how does Coppertree help with this whole question of cloud versus on-premise?
It really starts with a lot of education. So it starts with me in my VCIO role explaining what the advantages are and a discussion with the business owner to see how he values those advantages. So it's one thing for me to say from a technological perspective, your staff can work remotely and connect to everything. We must tie that to a business initiative and a business advantage The fact that an employee can do something isn't necessarily tied to a business goal. And therefore, we don't want to be doing things for the sake of doing them. So it starts with education, explaining to a business leader, here's what you're going to see. These are reasonable expectations in terms of the benefits. These are what we know to be the risks, and this is how we're going to mitigate those risks. So really it's education and communication and making them understand in terms that are digestible, that are understandable for a non-technical person. You will achieve this flexibility and it helps your business in this way, and this way. Because the best way to get an executive's attention is to tell them how this change is going to make their business better instead of how the change works. I don't really care how we do a cloud migration as a business owner. What I want to know is when I'm done, I'm going to get these advantages that I have identified benefit my business. And then they just hand the keys to us and say, go make it happen. And at the end of that migration, we loop back and say, these are the benefits we're providing, and these are how the risks are mitigated. So it really starts with education. So Colin, how are your clients' lives better after using CopperTree to solve their problems and address their pain points?
Ultimately, it comes down to peace of mind, knowing that they've got the right technology in place and they have a clear strategy in place to make sure that they get to success. When I ask business leaders what they want from technology, they always tell me the same things. And ultimately, what everybody wants from their technology is they just want it to work, and they want to sleep at night knowing that their risks are managed, and they want to know that they have the right technology to be able to drive their business forward. So if you as a business owner can come in every day and do what you do and not deal with technology problems, focus on your business, focus on what you're trying to do, and leverage technology as just another tool that you use every day, it typically means that you view that as success. Most of our clients tell us that when we first bring them on, the reason they come on is they want to get to the point where everything just works. And it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. And really the cloud is just one small part of that. Whether you have your infrastructure on premise or in the cloud shouldn't really matter to you as a business leader. Ultimately, you care about results, you care about the big picture, and you care about making sure that, like I said, when you come in every day, everything just works. So if you want to find out more about how we can help, just visit us at our website, coppertreesolutions.ca, and we'll start a conversation and see what we can do to help.